Pupils' book, called Introducing Craft Design and Technology, published by Hutchinson's, is available from this address. It's Books for Students, Leamington Spa, Warwickshire, CV31 1NB, or from your usual supplier, and the price is £3.25.
We have probably all been involved at one time or another in making models. From paper aeroplanes to train sets and dolls' houses, model making is a part of growing up. But it can develop from that into a significant contribution to the design process, often demanding the most meticulous craftsmanship. But to begin at the beginning, one important way in which children learn is by making models, beginning with bricks and blocks and going on to even more sophisticated techniques and components. By simple means, they are able to imitate structures that they see around them, as well as building imaginary ones. They're able to learn some basic lessons about how things stand up, or maybe more importantly, why they fall down. They're also discovering directly how things can connect and take apart, how they look, feel, and work together. These models are, in a sense, an elementary system of designing, and one that can be extended and applied in many different situations. Model making can be as important a tool for the designer as drawing. Models are needed for a variety of reasons, the most usual being that it is cheaper and easier to show three-dimensionally what a product or even a building will look like and how it will work. The advantage of a model is that we can see all around it, feel it, and test it in different ways to make sure that the final product will look good, work properly, and also sell. It's a way of checking and developing an idea or a drawn design. Even while making this programme, we used a model. This told us, before the set here was built, how we would best be able to use it, how we might light it, and if any changes needed to be made. Every day, we're surrounded by products that we're hardly aware of, all of which have been designed by somebody. What materials do industrial designers use to make their models?
We use plastics a lot in model making. A few other examples of our model making in plastics would be this, which is a soap dish for a range of bathroom accessories. We also, with this, would actually use plastics and wood, purely because they are hard materials and they can be formed to create the real, almost the real thing quite quickly. From that, we'd actually use plastics again to create almost the finished item itself. This, again, is part of a bathroom range, but we've actually covered it with silver paper to make it look metallized. Other materials which we use are styrofoam, actually, this is called, which is a form of polystyrene, which comes in quite large blocks and can be formed quite easily into shapes representing, here we're showing a telephone, which we can do very quickly and easily. Other materials would be plaster and plasticine, which we would use to create maybe characterized objects, as showing here, which is a jelly mold. This plasticine can be used obviously quite easily to form up various shapes which we couldn't do out of wood, obviously because wood is a lot harder. From a product like that, we would actually make a master mould, which would be out of rubber.
As we have seen, model making can become a very complicated and precisely controlled activity. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that, though. Sometimes it's possible to obtain the information needed by very simple methods, using cheap and easily available material, rather like designing on the back of an envelope. For the craftsman, making very sophisticated models is probably going to be too time-consuming and expensive. So a very straightforward approach to modelling and mock-ups is more appropriate. Fred Beyer is a designer and maker of some very unusual furniture. Hello, Fred. Nice to have you with us. Now, tell us, why do you make such unusual furniture? I mean, why don't you just make ordinary tables like we see every day?
Well, I'm just trying to push the bounds of structure and come up with new ideas, because there's no point in doing something again if it's already works. If you're looking for new ideas all the time. That's what
So what to you is important about design, then?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, what I want to do is make pieces of furniture that have some sort of new something to say that hasn't been said before, really.
To give the people you're making them for a different sort of view of how a table could look, for instance, or something
Oh,
like that.
yes, I suppose so.
Well, talking of this table, I mean, it is very unusual. How do you get your ideas for something like this? I mean, how would you go about thinking of it in the first place?
Well, the idea of this table here came about fairly simply through my messing about with a bit of cardboard and a pencil, and I sort of just... and trying to make a very simple structure. I mean, the table's only got one joint in it
Yeah.
and two holes, so there's not a lot of making involved in it. And I was just messing about to try and make a simple structure, and I just did that.
And that was
And
it.
that made a table. Yeah.
So in that case, I mean, you started with a model. What about drawing? Is it important to draw first, or?
Oh, well, yes, really. Drawing, there's all sorts of things about drawing which I'm sure there's another time to go into, but I'm always looking, and I find drawing very useful to help me look and also to help me plan out what I'm going to do. I always carry a sketchbook with me and always using
Sort of
it.
draw ideas down.
Mhm.
So let's get to models now. I mean, if you're going to make a model of something, I mean, do you make several models before you're happy with a finished product? I mean, what stages do you go through?
No, I usually make one model, or it depends. Sometimes I make a model, say, to present to a client. Say this bed here was a model to show the chap the sort of thing he was getting, because a drawing wouldn't show it so well as the model does. Whereas this model of this chair here was because I was having a great deal of difficulty in working out the angle of between those two planes there, and I found it easier to make a model of it to work the angle out.
Oh, I see. So in that case, you'd sort of use a model. But supposing, for instance, with the bed, you showed that to your client. I mean, how did they react to that? I mean, seeing it in model form as opposed to a finished product.
Well, it sort of lessens the surprise for them. They know what they're going to get. You know, if it is something a bit unusual, then it sort of lessens the load. And it
Breaks the shock.
Takes the edge off. It'd be awful if you walked in somewhere with something and they said, ooh,
Yeah.
you know.
Do you ever
don't
make
like
full-scale mock-ups at all? I mean, say, for instance, with a chair, that size, how do you know that that's going to stand up? I mean, how do you know it's going to work?
You just have to... It's just through messing about with bits of wood you get to know how strong a certain thickness bit is.
So you would actually try it out for real, would you,
yeah.
rather than making a full mock-up?
Well, I do sometimes. I mean, this here was where I was trying to work out a rigid structure using a very flimsy bit of material, you see.
Right.
And that's pop-riveted woodwork, and that's sort of like a full-scale mock-up of nothing in particular, just to try out a structure.
Right.
And then I haven't got an idea that I'm going to use that for yet.
Right, but that's just something that you've tried to develop in your own time.
Yeah, so I'll just put that to one side now, and then when a moment comes along when that would seem right to use, then I'll go,
Great. Well, thanks very much indeed for coming along and showing us some of your ideas. And while Fred makes his furniture on his own, or with the help of one or two assistants, many hundreds or even thousands of jobs may depend on an architect's design. When a new building is put up, it will affect the lives of very many people. even if they don't live or work in it themselves. It's especially important, therefore, that the design is completely understood by everyone concerned before construction begins. Architects' drawings can be extremely complex and almost impossible for the layman to understand, and partly as a result of this, architectural model making has become a highly developed industry, serving the needs of architects themselves, the developers and consumers, you and me.
I will go along to the architect's office and discuss the drawings with him and work out how long the model will take to make and therefore how much it will cost. And here we have a typical model which we call a presentation model. It's designed to show very realistically what the building is going to look like in its surroundings. This is a hospital, in fact, on the Isle of Wight. The scale, as I said before, was 1 to 200. That means it's 1/200 full size. Now the site is a fairly complicated sloping site, and therefore I had to build up the model in contour form. All these areas around here and here are grass, but they had to be built up in plywood contour forms to begin with, which were then smoothed over with plaster and then painted to represent the grass. In fact, I used pepper, which was scattered over the green paint and then sprayed with various shades of green to represent grass nicely. So before this model was made, there were a number of other models using much more symbolic materials such as balsa wood and cork to show the architect exactly how his plans were progressing in 3 dimensions. And some of these models can be used for other purposes than merely visual ones. They can be put into wind tunnels, for example, to show the effect of the build-up of wind in various areas. The architect was very interested to know what the wind might do in a courtyard like that, for instance, and also the sunlight. These models can be put into a light box which shows the effect of the sunlight on it at all kinds of times of the day. Now, a very different kind of model, but it is of the same scheme, is this model here, which is a very diagrammatic model at a much smaller scale, showing with the use of colored tape the different functions of different parts of the building. And here at another scale is a mock-up at full size of one of the corners of the building, so that the architect can see exactly how his cladding is going to look in actual fact. The material there represents stainless steel, of which we have an actual sample here, but I've made the model out of old bits of drain pipe, in fact, which have been sprayed silver. I use a lot of perspex. Perspex is a nice, neat material, quite easy to cut, and it joins together very neatly. So these cross-shaped blocks, which actually are the main wards of the hospital, have been built up in perspex sheet, and then various materials applied to the outside of them to represent the cladding of the building.
We've come a long way from children's building blocks and seen some of the advanced techniques and processes that are currently being used in the production of industrial and architectural models. Impressive as some of these are in themselves, it's important to remember that the purpose of making a model is to communicate more clearly a designer's intentions in a way that complements rather than replaces drawing. This might require an hour's work with cardboard and sticky tape, or weeks of painstaking construction. But whatever the means or standard of presentation, whether we are designers or not, the reason we respond so well to models is because of the way we experience the world, 3-dimensionally. Bye.